I'm heading to Laguna Seca to drive the Ferrari 488 Challenge Racer. 670 horsepower, under 3,000 pounds, just an absolute killer spec series race car. I haven't been on Laguna Seca in a while, and so I figured I'd play the Project Cars 2 game that has Laguna Seca as one of the tracks and the Ferrari Challenge Racer right down to the North American specification. I figured it's going to help me at least learn the line of Laguna Seca again and be maybe that much more comfortable when I actually get onto the track in the real Ferrari 488 Challenge car. Well, that was fast. That was a fast, immediate wipeout.
I feel like video game crashes aren't an ideal preparation for heading onto a racetrack, but Project Cars 2 did help me remember the racing line. Now it's time to take this from the virtual Laguna Seca to the famous circuit in Monterey, California.
I am suited and booted and ready to drive the Ferrari 488 Challenge Racer here at Laguna Seca. It's a fantasy race weekend for a gentleman's racing series, and these are some gentlemen. I'm telling you, this is about a $330,000 car from the factory versus $265 grand for the basic Ferrari 488. What do you get for that money? 661 horsepower, 3.9 liter twin turbo V8, the first turbocharged Ferrari racer in the Challenge series. This is a series that's 26 years old. I happen to be driving a car today with someone you might be familiar with, Michael Fassbender, the actor. You might know him best as young Magneto in the X-Men series. And Ferrari's been nice enough, they're letting me share his car here for some testing. And it's that white one back there with the hood off.
More forward. Okay, now back one.
There we go. Yep, exactly so.
You want to push the button? Thank you, brother. No problem, my man. Have fun. Yeah, give us a... Push the button.
Heading on to Laguna Seca to warm up here, just past the Andretti hairpin. Now with 661 horsepower on tap, even a little too much throttle is a recipe for instant wheel spin. But already I can tell that these slicks are much grippier than the showroom rubber. Ferrari's twin turbo V8 sounds spectacular. It's got all the Italian spirit, not to mention the sheer volume that we'd prefer in the showroom 488.
So let's talk about some of the things that makes this different from a production 488. Big all-new hood with these big triple flaps to get air out from under the hood. And because of that, they had to totally redo these radiators here. The radiators are tilted back towards the rear, and you get better airflow over the radiators and less drag as well. Of course, big, much larger splitter and flicks on the side here. Some weight savings. They took about maybe 40 pounds off the engine, give or take another 20 pounds off the exhaust system. The pièce de résistance, this big wing, this huge airfoil. Took some lessons from the Ferrari 488 GTE that won the FIA Endurance Championship. Got a big rear splitter, of course. Big intakes, big engine intakes on the side.
With my trusty coach, Craig Stanton, beside me, I'm picking up the pace now, just putting up smooth, consistent laps. This challenge car definitely drives like a Ferrari 488, only better. The steering is direct and not too heavy. The brakes are powerful but very easy to modulate when I trail off and roll back on the throttle.
Now if we peer over this massive rear wing here, we see the nerve center of this car, the mid-engine 3.9 liter twin turbo V8. First turbocharged racer in the Ferrari Challenge. Now incredibly, this car races in hardcore, genuine race car form in the GT Daytona series. That race car makes significantly less power, 150 fewer horses than the 661 horsepower engine in this car. So this gentleman racer on some tracks is actually faster around the track than the full-on Pro Daytona version. A lot of the modifications in this Ferrari 488 Challenge Racer, of course, involve the interior. All the luxury leather all ripped out. There's still a little bit of Alcantara here, I see. But of course, the roll cage welded in, and then everything you need for racing. The really interesting part of this, the typical Ferrari Manatino, kind of the control switch for your various driver modes, is replaced by 2 Manatinos. We've got one on the right for various levels of traction control. There's like a rain setting that's very sensitive. Now this is like kind of consider it the threshold of traction control, you know, when it gets the amount of slip, when it's going to be triggered. And this is kind of like a fine-tuning one for kind of the level then of intervention. So it's kind of the onset and then how aggressively it's going to manage traction. Of course, you dial all these things off and you're basically on your own. You might think that this 488 Challenge Racer is the harder get compared to a street Ferrari. In some cases, it's exactly the opposite. Customers have had a hard time, of course, getting on that vaunted Ferrari waiting list for a car. But if they buy a Challenge Racer, they might find themselves actually shooting up the list and be closer to the head of the line for one of the street cars.
The Formula One base electronic differential is definitely doing its thing to control wheel spin and max out power to the pavement, but the system isn't getting in my way. But the biggest difference between the showroom Ferrari and this Challenge Racer is the incredibly short gearing. Accelerating from a dead stop in first gear through the top of fourth gear takes 6 seconds flat. It feels more like a motorcycle than a conventional car.
That was good laps.
Yeehaw, man. Thank you.
Now, what have we learned? Video games are much cheaper, and you'll never require an emergency room visit. But for a Ferrari 488 Challenge Racer at Laguna Seca, there's nothing like the real thing.